Hello and welcome to Continuing Clockwise, a channel about games, gamers, and gaming. I'm Chad. So I just got back from a week at summer camp as a counselor, and this was a camp for middle school through high school kids. It wasn't specifically a tabletop gaming camp, but I made sure and brought some along and had them available for the opportunities when they could play. So most days of the camp we had special interests available, and it was about an hour and a quarter long each day, and so that's when we played. This year I brought The Resistance, Codenames Pictures, Forbidden Island, Forbidden Desert, Pandemic, Ticket to Ride, and Elder Sign. I also learned from last year that some kids just want to play cards, so I made sure and brought a few normal playing cards as well. I was a little surprised we never played Codenames, and that's a really fun, quick game to play, but it really requires 4 players to play well. That's actually the only way I've ever played it. And so whenever we had 4 kids who wanted to do the same thing, it just never happened to rise to the top. We had one larger chunk of time on Wednesday. We had a 2-hour block that we could play. It was actually during the dance. And so, a lot of the kids just were not, interested or comfortable kind of at the dance. And so we set up a table, right outside. And so some kids who could drop out of the games for a minute or 2 or 3 or 5 and kind of dance with their friends for a minute and then return to the games. I mean, a lot of the kids just never did that, just played games the whole time. During that period, 2 of the younger girls pulled out Pandemic for the first time that week, and they just played it on their own. I think I answered, 1 or 2 questions from them, and they just did their own thing, which I thought was just great. That was also the time that Elder Sign got played, so they pulled it out, and some of the older kids played that. And while I don't think of Elder Sign as being that much more complex than, say, Forbidden Desert, they really struggled. Like, it was harder for them to learn. And I think mostly that was just because it was a different mechanic than they were used to. Also, the way it was set up, we were right near the dance, and so there was a lot more chaos and just distractions. And so learning a new game that's very different from what you're used to, that's just all the harder. The highlight, I think, was when I really wanted them to play The Resistance. I wanted to play The Resistance. And so one of the days, I think it was Thursday, I just had signups for The Resistance instead of just general tabletop games. And I expected a different crowd. I expected more kind of social kids, what I thought of as the outgoing kids. But that really wasn't how it went. It was really, in large part, the same kids who had been signing up throughout the week, signed up for The Resistance, knowing, and they knew what they were getting into. And it went really well. They really enjoyed themselves. We had one player who really wasn't comfortable with the complexity of some of the other games. She's not much of a gamer, frankly, but her friends were, and so she hung out with us, and she really enjoyed The Resistance. And another player who's a little socially awkward, who I did not think would enjoy this, he loved it. His face lit up. He enjoyed the subtleties and the manipulation of the game. And that was just great. It was so fun to just watch him shine in that environment. I also realized that was the only non-collaborative game that we played all week long. I think there was a little pent-up competitive energy that contributed to the fun of that day. The moral of that story, I think, is to don't limit players' access to games based on your own assumptions. Open it wide and see who's interested. People will surprise you, especially kids. So I'm curious, have you ever been in that circumstance where you had to, or were able to, or were allowed to introduce games to a new group of players, especially teenagers? I would love to hear your war stories as well. What worked? What didn't work? What did you learn? What would you do differently next time? If you like this video, please click the like button. Please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next week, game great.